なな。パッパカパー。こんな感じで大丈夫かな。わわわわわ。じゃあ始まったかな。始まったかな。始まってないかな。始まったね。始まってますね。じゃあ頑張りまーすね。ちょい待った。ぽいぽいぽい。はい。パパパパパパパパー。やべ。まあいっか。ちょっと準備がかばってるな。けどまあいいや。ダメだ。少々お待ちください。よいしょ。よいしょ。よいしょ。よいしょ。よいしょ。準備できたかな。から戻ろう。はい。はい。わーわーわー。あれ。はいはいはい。よいしょ。じゃあ頑張ります。頑張って最後のパズル解き切っていきたいと思います。これさ、解き方一生わからんかったよ、多分。カンニングしなかったら。もうダメなんだ。で、ここら辺に風景パズルはないんだよな、多分。ないはず。ないと信じないとやってらんない。で、残りは、いろいろ何箇所かあるはずの風景パズルを解いていくことに集中しないといけないですね。まあ、そのために一旦外に出てですね。ないよね、本当に。いや、怖いんだけども。一旦外に出て、なんかここにあるらしいよっていう風なね、教えてもらった風景パズルを解いていきたいかなと思いまーすが、ここのね、パパパパパパパー、なんかこういうね、岩から見下ろした時に見えるやつみたいなのもね、パズルになったりするらしいですよ。一個気になるのは、ここら辺にどっかあるんだよね。こっから見たやつは多分解いたんだよな。ああ、解ける解ける。もう一個。これね、花の色が違うやつがもう一個あるはず。お、これか？なんか上から登れないかな。登れねえや。これだ。はい。解けた。これでさ、もう モノリスがさの色が変わってくれたら嬉しいんだけど、まだで、ちなみにこれを全クリするとですね、モノリスの色が変わって白っぽくなるらしいですね。ただね、これこんなんあるか？こういう系統で見てきたんだから、これってどういうパズルだっけ？そうだよね。これ系、ここら辺の近くにあるパズルだっけ？じゃあつまりで、ここら辺は床にある風景パズルに見えるから、同じように下を見下ろした時に見える風景パズルがあるんだろうな。パーパッパパパーパッパパパー。高いところから見るべきだね、そしたら。地獄やで。あー、ここ入れないんだった。間違えた。こっちのね、階段登ってね、これ全部やったっけ？やったはず。やったんだよな。で、ここのわけわからんパズルも全部解いた。あ、そっか、上に行かない。あ、間違えたわ。結構、道順忘れちゃうな。よいしょ。こっち側と上がって、こういう高いところから見下ろした時に見える風景パズルみたいなのが、きっとあるはずなんだな。これ見たしね。これも見たし。これも見たし。これもね、見たから、他になんかあるんだろうな。こういう高いところから見下ろすタイプの感じでもう一個なんかあるっす。難しいね。こっち側のヘリってなんか見つかる？見たことないものあるかな？このヘリ、なんかこういうさ、行くことはできるけど周りにオブジェクトないよみたいなタイプって大体風景パズルがあるもんだけど、違うのかな？これも気になるんだよね。わからん。カンニングしたやつ全部埋めてこう。もうダメだって。これね、自力で探そうとしたらね、多分ね、3年ぐらいかかります。無理。それはね、ちょっと無理だね。ここに風景パズルがあるらしい。これね、これだ。あれ？もう見つけてるこれ。これもう見つけてあんな。で、多分こっちは見てないはず。これこんなんわかるかな？よいしょー。他になんかあるかな？なんかなあ、白くなってる。やったー。やった。やっと見れた。この塔が白くなってんの初めて見れたかも。 この辺り一帯にある風景パズルを全部見れましたよっていうことになりますね。大変だった。あ、風車のパズルもここなんだ。風車はもうない。もうこれさ、これだけ出されてもさ、わかんねえんだよな、どこで見つけたパズルだか。まあしゃあなし。新たなあれを探しに行ってあれするしかなし。パパパパパパパパパパパパパパ。これは高いところから降りて住宅に行って上がる。どんなパズルじゃ？他になんか分かりやすいのないかな。いっぱいあるね、ここね。こんなジグザグにの軌道を描くやつあったっけ？でも穴がちっちゃいってことは上から見下ろした崩れた城壁のやつかな。無理なんだよね。これを確か見つけたよね。この町か地下都市のどっかにあるはずなんだな。これのパズルも見たもんな。これがぐるっと回るタイプか。ぐるっと回るタイプ。ぐねぐね曲がるタイプ。うんうん。あ、やべ、わざわざ遠回りしちゃった。この辺りになんか下に地面発端の風景パズルとかがあるのかしら。どうなんだろうね。わかりやすいのとかだとあれだよね。もうめっちゃつけちゃったもんな。たどりきっちゃってる感じあるね。ここも光ってるもんな。ここへの道もたどりきってる。こっち側ってなんかなかったっけ？ないか。つらい。つらいよ。でも大丈夫です。この枠が終わったら100% クリアならずとも、フィットネスの配信は終わりにしたいと思います。無理だもんだってこんな。頭おかしくなるこんな。ちょっと太めの枠線がさ、引いてあるとさ、風景パズルかと思っちゃうんで。ここもさ、結局さ、解く意味あったのかないのか分かんないんだよね。結局カンニングしたしな。色が変わるタイプの風景パズル無理。多分苦手な部類かもしれない。こういう水面もさ、なんか風景パズルがありそうっちゃありそうなんだよね。丸くない？この人とか。これは見たしね。 ろいろ見なきゃいけないところがありすぎてさ、やばい。この辺りちょっと薄い城壁崩れみたいなのは視点がないからな。視点がないから風景パズルの見つけようがないですね。まだちょっとベージュっぽいやつもなし。ここら辺なんかよくわかんないワンワンがいるんじゃなかったっけ。ワンワンがいるけど他に何か手がかりがあるわけでもないみたいな。船乗るか。船の周りにあるかもね。そうなると結構面倒なんだよな。パーパッパーパッパー。地下にある風景パズル進めちゃってもいいけどね。この上登れてわざわざ何もないみたいなのも腑に落ちたいね。ああ、ここに見れるのか。これが見れるのか。もう一個ぐらいあっても良さそうだね。これ見つけてないわけがないよね。
Oh my God.
多分見たな。
How does it happen in this poor old world? That thou art so great, and yet nobody finds thee. That thou callest so loudly, and nobody hears thee.
Nobody knows.
That thou art so near, and nobody feels.
これプラス2になってる。516クリア。なんか噂に聞くとですね、530の100何十のあと何十かみたいな。言ってること全然わかんねえな。
They stop their ears and say they cannot hear thee. Hansdank, circa 1520.
あとまだ見つけてないパズルが30、40個ぐらいはあるらしいということでですね。やだー、やだー。本当に丸くなってない？なんか丸く見えるんだよね。丸かないか。川の反対側って渡れないのかな。ここから見えるなんか景色が特別だったりとかする？ないね。ここ渡れないか。マニ助けいくかいか。なし。こういう水面に反射する系だったらなんかワンチャンあるかなとか思っちゃうんだよな。結局このパズルを見つけた時にさ、どこのトーテムポールに吸い込まれていくのかが分かんないしさ、あれよね。他にね、見つけてなさい。多分風景パズルなんだろうけど、まだ終わってないよっていうところで言うと、こっちかな。こっちのあれだね。あ、そうだ。あとカンニングでもう一個見て知ったのがこれだね。こんなんさ、わかるわけなくない？こんなところにパズルがあるなんて。わかるわ わけないんだよ本当は。これですね。これ絶対パズルなんだと思うんだけどな。横幅よし。どうやったらこれさ、なんだなんかオレンジのものがそこに来てないといけないんだよね。あ、わかった。ちょっと待って、それやる？本当に？嫌なんだけど。嫌なんだけど。で、右から左へブーって車が、船が走っていって、ここでえんのか。わかった。めんどくさい。やだ。絶対やりたくない。ほんとやだ。気づかなければよかった。じゃあ船転がしに行きますか。こっからだとどこが安定かな。こっからだとね、まあ一旦降りてだね。向かい側に橋を渡して、橋今渡ってるっけ？渡ってなさそうなんだよね。だから橋なかったらなかったで、ここに風景パズルないかもう一回だけ見てみて。これだ。多分今からやろうとしてるパズルはこれなんだけど、他になんか見落としないかな。暗くて見づらいんだよね。これか。はい、つながってませんと。どこからも見れませんと。面倒なんだよね。これ溶けてるもんね。難しいんだよね、これ。これなんだ？多分、この同じグルーピングから察するに、本当か？船来たもんね。船見た。これなんだ？これなんだ？この特徴的な形はすぐわかりますよね。船の中にある縄が、あれがね。だからこの縦一列は船系のやつなんだろうなと思って、このうねうねしたやつあったっけ？船で外側を大回りした時のやつかな。で、これが上から見下ろしパズルが全部解けたと。あと今見えてる限りだと2問解けばコンプリートってことになります。まあとりあえずじゃあでね、勘なんだけどこっち側にありそうな気がすんだよね。ただの勘なんだが、まあこっから下に降りてもどうにもなんないのが面倒だよね。 ね下から読んでさ。バカバカバカバカバカバカバカバカバカバカバカ。こっちから行くのが果たして得策なんだろうか。わかんないや。いや。レッツゴー。最初にやるべきだったね、クソ激ムズパズルもね、最初にやるべきだとしてない。このゲームはスチーム版だと実績が2個しかなくてですね。で、その実績をね、よいしょ。くそ。どこ行く？このゲームはスチーム版だと実績が2個しかなくて、で、それをで、分かった。船に乗りながらだと乗らされちゃうから外で見るしかないんだ多分。こうだ。こっちで合ってる？合ってないかも。合ってるかも。これで走ってさ、上乗って、これまあ悠長に待ち構えてて、どんどん先行かれてたどり着く頃には船先に行ってたらおしまいですね。ただまあそういうことはないと信じたいなーんてね。なんて今いかに何者を見せて考えてないかがわかりますね。やばい。早くゴンドラ早く来てくれ。走れ走れ走れ走れ走ってんです今。全速力で走ってんですよ。はい、ナイス。で、このまま城の中行って海まで出る。直視最短距離で。そしたらいける。パーパッパパパッパパーン。間に合うのかな。まあデフォルトのスピードで結構悠長だからさ、まだギリギリ間に合うと信じたいよね。はい、やったー。いってるいってるいってるよ。いいよいいよいいよいってるよ。はい、やったー。あれだよ。ずーっと分かんなかったこれ。最初にプレイした時から分かんなかったもんな。 しかも結構ギリギリのタイミングだ。あれで反対側くるっと回れればいいんだけどさ、回れないんだよね。このまんまもう一回トーテムポール見てみて、バカバカ。よいしょ。もう一回このまま城の外出て、城の外周回ってトーテムポールがどうなってるかを確認と。でそれが見れればでも十中八九っていうか、ほぼ確実にさっきのとこなんで、これだったね、やっぱね。あと1個なんだと思うんだけどね、下にいないもんね。他にもなさそうに見える。これ微妙なさ、光の反射でさしかさ見れないんだよね。これが多分ちょっと待って、この2つが多分タワーのてっぺんからじゃないと見れないやつ。これもまたタワーのてっぺんから見れないといけないやつの5通りの風景パズルですね。っていう風に考えると、これも曲線形だから、あそこら辺のやつなんだと思うんだよね。あ、これとかさ、地面に光と影が当たってできてる系はこの子ら辺で、これがパネルのパズルをちゃんとやったら見れるタイプのやつなんだと思いますね。パネルのパズルをちゃんとやったら見れる。頑張ろう。パパパパパパパパーン。じゃあさ、そしたらさ、てかさっきここを変に渡って思ったけど、こっちから行った方が早くない？早かないか。早かないのか。めんどくだな。ちなみにこっから見下ろした時に何か新しい風景パズルが見えたりとかはないのかな。まあないよね、散々見たもんね。ここら辺がワンチャン風景パズルっぽいなとか思うけど、ないね。じゃあ一旦下降りて、滝の横抜けて、滝の横を抜けて、あ、ここも行けないんだ。あはにゃー。こっからなんか見える風景パズルがあったりとかするのかな。ないか。なし。よし。この仕切り板やらしいよね、ほんとに。これなんか見えたりはせえへんですか。そうですか。結局こっち側か から大回りしないと船に乗れないかな。この辺りに見える風景パズル、研究所付近にある風景パズルも大体見た気がするけどな。どうなんでしょうね、実際ね。なんで予期せぬものがここら辺にポツンとあったりしますからね。もうそうなったら終わりです。今時ね、全風景パズルをね、教えてくれるサイトっていうか、もうね、ないんですよ。だからそれがね、あればね、作るか？全風景パズルのありか。新しいセーブデータ作るのめんどいよ。けどやるか。せっかくだしね。見渡してる風景パズルもないしな。この辺に風景パズルも。でも風景パズルの引っ掛けようがなくない？あそこに対して。確かに。パーパッパパパーンパパーパパパンパンパパンパパンパーパッパーパッパパン。雲系も2つ見つけたしね。他になんかあるかな。これも見たしね。見た。逆方向ならもう一個取れんじゃないかとか思ったけどね、そこもちゃんとケアされてるね。見れないようになってる。んでこれね、これがクリアするために必要な。ちょっと待って、あれ取ったっけ？取ってない気がするな。あ、すげえクイックに止まっちゃう。もうちょっと惰性ありで止まってもいいんですよ。
Suppose a boat is crossing a river, and another empty boat is about to collide with it. Even an irritable man would not lose his temper. But supposing there was someone in the second, then the occupant of the first would shout to him to keep clear, and if the other did not hear the first time, nor even when called 3 times, bad language would inevitably follow. In the first case, there was no anger. In the second, there was. Because in the first case, the boat was empty, and in the second, it was occupied. And so it is with man. If he could only roam empty through life, who would be able to injure him? Shuangzi, 4th century BC.
わからん。どうしようかな。うわ、パンパカパン。難しいね。 これはこの祈りを捧げてる人が見れるスポットでしかないのかな。他になんかないのだろうか。疑り深くなっちゃう。この辺りとか結構怪しく見えるんだけどさ、ないんだよね、何も。ないか。この高さで見ても何も変わらないかな。ないか。この高さに見ても何もない。ないか。なんかないのかしら。時間制限のやつか。よいしょ。 からなんか見れるものあったりするのかな。あれか、風景パズル1個かな。この位置でしか見れないんだっけ、多分この位置でしか見れないんだろうな。真ん中上に持ってくにはこうかな。あ、ダメか。ダメだ。どうしようかな。発酵するのが一番楽なんだろうけどさ。いったわ。このパズル解けてる。あれは見たけど見れないけど見た。で、うねうね系のやつはここの壁際にもう一個あるはずなんだよね。だから1個2個3個でちゃんと押さえてるはずなんだ。なんかあるかな。逆だ逆。どうしたもんかね。このままやって、よいしょよいしょよいしょ。これなんだと思うんだよな、足りないものって。丸があって右に左に流れてく？丸があっ って左に流れてく。丸があって左に流れてく。これ見ましたね。見ました。丸が丸があって左に流れてくる。丸があって左に流れてくってなんだ。船で見るしかないのかな。いや、船タイプのやつじゃない。こいつがいたもん。伸びてぐるっと回ってカクンと落ちる。かなり左に流れてはいるけど、かなり手前に来てるもんね。ああ、今探してるやつはもうすごいかなりダイレクトに左に流れてるから、これっすね、まさにね。これってどこで見つけた？なんだこれ、わからん。わからんくない？なんだこれ。でもその角張った感じからやっぱり人工物系の風景パズルなんだろうなとは思うけど。左に伸ばしてみるか。それ確かにやってないかも。こっから見たら丸になったりするか？するかも。無理だ。上はいけないんだよね。 なんだ？そこにつなげてなんかあるのかな？いや、ないよな。これに別解があったりするかな？ないか。ないね。このパターンだとどうしてもないね。生えてる道がどうこうじゃないかもな。なんだ？これで下から降りて見上げてみるか、一回。まあダメだろうけどね。違うよね、やっぱね。なんだ？なんだろう。ここら辺も怪しくない。怪しいか怪しくないかで言えばちょっと怪しいけどね。オレンジのそうやね。ここら辺も風景パズルと見るには足りないからな。 あるはずなんだよな、風景パズルが。閉めたところでね、なんもないわけだし。なんだ、風景パズルね。やっぱりないかな。ここら辺の屋根の形でなんかありそうではあるよね。ないけど。ない。上見たらなんかあるかな。ねえや。なんだ、全くわからん。カンニングしよう。カンニングしてます。うん。 緑のやつも回る。すっかり忘れとったがな。ああああ俺すっかり忘れとった。ないじゃない、こっち。取った。あ、白くなった。やっとだよ。これでよしと。オベリスクまだ見てないのは栗。もうどんどんカンニングします。もうやってられん。やってられんわ。そっか、朝から風景パズルまだいっぱい残ってるもん。残ってるね、確かに。We got the border down, no one can figure it out. Oh, 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 oh. こうかな。あ、端っこ取ったや。こっちのあれはそこまでとは言ってないね。このぐらいかな。いいじゃないですか。で、この人を、これはこのままでいいんだ。これは取ったんだね。なるほどね。これは これって取れんの？あ、これ連動してる？もしかして。あ、違うのか。この子の角度。あーね。なるほどね。よいしょ。帰りがオベリスク。これ新しく2増えたから、これで全部取れたりするかな。あ、これだったんだ。意味わかんないよね。まあいいや。でもこうしてみるとほとんどの風景パズルはちゃんと見つけられてたんですね。あ、そうだ。最初のスペース、主人公が舞い降り立った土地のあたりに風景パズルがたくさんあるんだった。風景パズルっていうか、あれだよね。まだ隠されたパズルがね。裏面に行くパズルは知ってるんですけど、まだ、今裏面に行けちゃうと困っちゃうので、そう、もうちょっと待ちますね。タイミング見てから、裏面行こうかなって感じかな。これね。あ、できたできた。 あ、ダメか。ちょっと待って。あ、最後の一箇所だけか。やったー。なんか出た。簡単じゃない？なんか解放がたくさんあるのかな。解放たくさんありますね。っていうか普通にすごい簡単に解けちゃうパズルだけでいいのかな。あ、待って、そういうこと？あれ違うわ。待って。あ、そういうこと？おい、こんなんわかるわけないって。こんなんわかるわけないって。色をミスですねって記録するためにはちゃんと船に乗るのがいいらしい。ちょっと待って。そんなんわからんて。あそこの色をつけて光らせるところ、もう一通り解き方があるらしい。あと船に乗るのがいいらしい。一旦見ようか。結構埋まってきてるね。んでさ、これだね。これ赤で終わりかと思ってたけど、それ以外の解き方もあるらしい。これわかんないよ。わかるかねこれ。わかんないと思うよ。緑の色は確かね、こうじゃなかった？にゃにゃわにゃたぱぴぴぱぴぴぴ。で、ここの外から見ますと。 船に乗って一回確認しないとダメだね。あとは地下をちゃんとチェックしよう。船に乗り切り。これは全部やったはずなんだよね。あ、見た見た見た。見てるね。これで一回回収を回りますね。そろそろね、外側になんか見えるらしい。外側ってか、これかな、ここら辺かな。もっとゆっくり行かんとダメだ。行くよー。これ結構一瞬だね。もうちょい。ほらいほらい。オッケー。うん。 マジで知らなかったっていうところに録音ファイルがたくさんあるらしい。もうダメだ。わかるわけないわ、こんな。録音ファイル、まずはこれわかんないよね、これ。
I am standing on the threshold about to enter a room. It is a complicated business. In the first place, I must shove against an atmosphere pressing with a force of 14 pounds on every square inch of my
これも
body.
わかんないわ。
I must make sure of landing on a plank, traveling at 20 miles a second around the sun. A fraction of a second too early or too late, the plank would be miles away. I must do this whilst hanging from a round planet head outward into space and with a wind of ether blowing at no one knows how many miles a second through every interstice of my body. The plank has no solidity of substance. To step on it is like stepping on a swarm of flies. Shall I not slip through? No. If I make the venture, one of the flies hits me and gives me a boost up again. I fall again and am knocked upwards by another fly, and so on. I may hope that the net result will be that I remain about steady. But if, unfortunately, I should slip through the floor or be boosted too violently up to the ceiling, the occurrence would be not a violation of the laws of nature, but a rare coincidence. These are some of the minor difficulties. I ought really to look at the problem four-dimensionally as concerning the intersection of my world line with that of the plank. Then again, it is necessary to determine in which direction the entropy of the world is increasing in order to make sure that my passage of the threshold is an entrance, not an exit. Verily, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a scientific man to pass through a door. And whether the door be barn door or church door, it might be wiser that he should consent to be an ordinary man and walk in, rather than wait till all the difficulties involved in a really scientific ingress are resolved.
ああ、そんないろんなとこにあるんだ。
Arthur Eddington, 1927.
Through many births, I have wandered on and on, searching for, but never finding, the builder of this house.
あ、早い。すぐ終わっちゃった。もう一回聞いてもいいかな。結構長いもんだと思ってぼーっとしちゃった今。
Through many births, I have wandered
Many
on
births.
and on,
女の子
searching for, but never finding, the builder of this house.
of this house. どうやらこの辺りにもあるらしい。ほえ。
The physicist Wolfgang Pauli once spoke of two limiting conceptions, both of which have been extraordinarily fruitful in the history of human thought, although no genuine reality corresponds to them. At one extreme is the idea of an objective world, pursuing its regular course in space and time independently of any kind of observing subject.
解いてないか。
This has been the guiding image of modern science. At the other extreme is the idea of a subject, mystically experiencing
520、120なのよ。
the unity of the world and no longer confronted by an object or by any objective world. This has been the guiding image of Asian mysticism. Our thinking moves somewhere in the middle, between these two limiting conceptions. We should maintain the tension resulting from these two opposites. Werner Heisenberg,
ワーナー・
1974.
ハイゼンベルク。1970。1979が聞こえる。で、ここに1個あるらしい。これわかんなくね？
Formerly, you appeared to me, O Lord,
でも
as
聞いたことある
invisible
かな？
by every creature because you are a hidden, infinite God. Infinity, however, is incomprehensible by every means of comprehending. Later, you appeared to me as visible by all. For a thing exists only as you see it, and it would not actually exist unless it saw you. For your vision confers being, since your vision is your essence. Thus, my God, you are equally invisible and visible. As you are invisible, as the creature is, which exists only insofar as the creature sees you, you are visible. You, therefore,
難し
my
いこと言ってん
invisible
ね。
God, are seen by all, and in all sight you are seen by everyone who sees. You who are invisible,
UFO
who are both absolute from everything visible and infinitely super exalted, are seen in every visible thing and in every act of vision. Therefore, I must leap across this wall of invisible vision to where you are to be found. But this wall is both everything and nothing. For you, who confront as if you were both all things and nothing at all, dwell inside that high wall which no natural ability can scale by its own power. Nicholas of Cusa, 1453. One nature, perfect and
これ
pervading,
はもう見たね。
circulates in all natures.
禅の人だっけ？
One reality, all comprehensive, contains within itself all realities. The one moon reflects itself wherever there is a sheet of water, and all the moons and the waters are embraced within the one moon. The absolute of all the Buddhas enters into my own being.
で、ここら辺にもう
My
1個
own
あるらしい。
being is found in union with theirs. The inner light is beyond praise and blame. Like space, it knows no boundaries. Yet it is even here, within us,
どれだ？
ever retaining its serenity and fullness. It is only when you hunt for it that you lose it. You cannot take hold of it, but equally you cannot get rid of it. And while you can do neither, it goes on, its own way. You remain silent, and it speaks. You speak, and it is dumb. The great gate of charity is wide open, with no obstacles before it. Youngcha Tashi, circa 700.
ここら辺かな？崩れたっぽい壁があって、ここら辺かな？あれ？違うわ。あ、あった。
I maintain that the cosmic religious feeling is the strongest and
これ聞いたな。
noblest motive for scientific research. Only those who realize the immense efforts and, above all, the devotion without which pioneer work in theoretical science cannot be achieved, are able to grasp the strength of the emotion out of which alone such work, remote as it is from the immediate realities of life, can issue. What a deep conviction of the rationality of the universe, and what a yearning to understand, were it but a feeble reflection of the mind revealed in this world, Kepler and Newton must have had to enable them to spend years of solitary labor in disentangling the principles of celestial mechanics. Those whose acquaintance with scientific research is derived chiefly from its practical results easily develop a completely false notion of the mentality of the men who, surrounded by a skeptical world, have shown the way to kindred spirits scattered wide through the world and through the centuries. Only one who has devoted his life to similar ends can have a vivid realization of what has inspired these men and given them the strength to remain true to their purpose in spite of countless failures. It is cosmic religious feeling that gives a man such strength. A contemporary has said, not unjustly, what is divine in man is elusive and impalpable, and he is easily tempted to embody it in a concrete form, a church, a country, a social system, a leader, so that he may realize it with less effort and serve it with more profit. Yet, the attempt to externalize the kingdom of heaven in a temporal shape must end in disaster. It cannot be created by charters or constitutions, nor established by arms. Those who seek for it alone will reach it together, and those who seek it in company will perish by themselves. Hugh Kingsmill, 1944.
66 times have these eyes beheld the changing scene of autumn. I have said enough about moonlight. Ask no more. Only listen to the voice of pines and cedars when no wind stirs. Leonin, 1711.
In the traditional view, a person is free. He is autonomous in the sense that his behavior is uncaused. That view, together with its associated practices, must be re-examined when a scientific analysis reveals unexpected controlling relations between behavior and environment. By questioning the control exercised by autonomous man and demonstrating the control exercised by the environment, a science of behavior also seems to question dignity or worth. A person is responsible for his behavior, not only in the sense that he may be justly blamed or punished when he behaves badly, but also in the sense that he is to be given credit and admired for his achievements. A scientific analysis shifts the credit as well as the blame to the environment, and traditional practices can then no longer be justified. These are sweeping changes, and those who are committed to traditional theories and practices naturally resist them. As the emphasis shifts to the environment, the individual seems to be exposed to a new kind of danger. Who is to construct the controlling environment, and to what end? Autonomous man presumably controls himself in accordance with a built-in set of values. He works for what he finds good. But what will the putative controller find good? And will it be good for those he controls? Answers to questions of this sort are said, of course, to call for value judgments. B.F. Skinner, 1971.
Like, やっぱりあれか、一回再生すると光らなくなるんじゃないかな。1979が聞こえる。
I boasted among men that I had known you. They see your pictures in all works of mine. They come and ask me, who is he? I know not how to answer them. I say, Indeed, I cannot tell. They blame me, and they go away in scorn. And you sit there, smiling. I put my tales of you into
こんなと
lasting
ころにあるん
songs.
だ。
The secret gushes out from my heart. They come and ask me, tell me all your meanings. I know not how to answer them. I say,
I say,
ah, who knows what they mean?
who knows what's
They
me?
smile and go away in utter scorn. And you sit there smiling. Rabindranath Tagore, 1910.
タゴール。変更をこの間映画版見たときにタゴールの詩が出ましたね。
Our hangnails are incredibly real to us. Whereas to most of us, the English village of Netherwallop and the high Himalayan country of Bhutan, not to mention the slowly swirling spiral galaxy in Andromeda, are considerably less real.
ここにもあるんだ。
Even though our
Oh,
intellectual
that's funny,
selves
Mama.
might wish to insist that since the latter are much bigger and longer lasting than our hangnails, they ought therefore to be far realer to us than our hangnails are. We can say this to ourselves till we're blue in the face, but few of us act as if we really believed it. A slight slippage of subterranean stone that obliterates 20,000 people in some far-off land. The ceaseless plundering of virgin jungles in the Amazon basin. A swarm of helpless stars being swallowed up one after another by a ravenous black hole. Even an ongoing collision between two huge galaxies, each of which contains 100 billion stars. Such colossal events are so abstract to someone like me that they can't even touch the sense of urgency and importance, and thus the reality of some measly little hangnail on my left hand's pinky. We are all egocentric, and what is realist to each of us in the end is ourself. The realest things of all are my knee, my nose, my anger, my hunger, my toothache, my side ache, my sadness, my joy, my love for math, my abstraction ceiling, and so forth. What all these things have in common, what binds them together, is the concept of my, which comes out of the concept of I or me, and therefore, although it is less concrete than a nose or even a toothache, this I thing is what ultimately seems to each of us to constitute the most solid rock of undeniability of all. Could it possibly be an illusion? Or if not a total illusion, could it possibly be less real and less solid than we think it is? Could an eye be more like an elusive, receding, shimmering rainbow than like a tangible, heftable, transportable pot of gold? Douglas Hofstadter, 2007. If a man, holding a belief which he was taught in childhood or persuaded of afterwards, keeps down and pushes away any doubts which arise about it in his mind, purposely avoids the reading of books and the company of men that call into question or discuss it, and regards as impious those questions which cannot easily be asked without disturbing it, the life of that man is one long
次のやつ
sin
は
against
見た気
mankind.
がするんだよな。
But, says one, I am a busy man. I have no time for the long course of study which would be necessary to make me in any degree a competent judge of certain questions, or even able to understand the nature of the arguments. Then he should have no time to believe. William K. Clifford, 1874. A ship owner was about to send to sea an emigrant ship. He knew that she was old, and not well built at the first, that she had seen many seas and climes, and often had needed repairs. Doubts had been suggested to him that possibly she was not seaworthy. These doubts preyed upon his mind and made him unhappy. He thought that perhaps he ought to have her thoroughly overhauled and refitted, even though this should put him at great expense. Before the ship sailed, however, he succeeded in overcoming these melancholy reflections. He said to himself that she had gone safely through so many voyages and weathered so many storms that it was idle to suppose she would not come safely home from this trip also. he would put his trust in Providence, which could hardly fail to protect all these unhappy families that were leaving their fatherland to seek for better times elsewhere. He would dismiss from his mind all ungenerous suspicions about the honesty of builders and contractors. In such ways, he acquired a sincere and comfortable conviction that his vessel was thoroughly safe and seaworthy. He watched her departure with a light heart and benevolent wishes for the success of the exiles in their strange new home that was to be. And he got his insurance money when she went down in mid-ocean and told no tales. What shall we say of him? Surely this, that he was verily guilty of the death of those families. It is admitted that he did sincerely believe in the soundness of his ship, but the sincerity of his conviction can in no wise help him, because he had no right to believe on such evidence as was before him. He had acquired his belief not by honestly earning it in patient investigation, but by stifling his doubts. And although in the end he may have felt so sure about it that he could not think otherwise, yet inasmuch as he had knowingly and willingly worked himself into that frame of mind, he must be held responsible for it. William K. Clifford, 1874.
These hearts were woven of human joys and cares, washed marvelously with sorrow, swift to mirth. The years had given them kindness. Dawn was theirs, and sunset, and the colors of the earth. These had seen movement and heard music, known slumber and waking, loved, gone proudly friended, felt the quick stir of wonder, sat alone, touched flowers and furs and cheeks. All this is ended. There are waters blown by changing winds to laughter, and lit by the rich skies all day. And after, frost, with a gesture, stays the waves that dance in wandering loveliness. He leaves a white, unbroken glory, a gathered radiance, a width, a shining peace under the night. Rupert Brooke, 1914.
こっち側にも一個あるらしい。これ知らなかったかなあ、知ってるかな見たかも。一回。あれどこだここら辺かな 岩と重ねるこのくらい。あ、でもこれ聞いたんだ。光ってないもんね。
We have two kinds of knowledge which I call symbolic and intimate. I do not know whether it would be correct to say that reasoning is only applicable to symbolic knowledge, but the more customary forms of reasoning have been developed for symbolic knowledge only. The intimate knowledge will not submit to codification and analysis, or rather, when we attempt to analyze it, the intimacy is lost and replaced by symbolism. For an illustration, let us
ユ
consider
ーモアに
humor.
ついて考えてみましょう。
I suppose that humor can be analyzed to some extent and the essential ingredients of the different kinds of wit classified. Suppose that we are offered an alleged joke. We subject it to scientific analysis as we would a chemical salt of doubtful nature, and perhaps after careful consideration,
す
we are
ごいいろんなとこにあるな。520、127
able to
の4。
confirm that it really and truly is a joke. Logically, I suppose, our next procedure would be to laugh. But it may certainly be predicted that as the result of this scrutiny, we shall have lost all inclination we ever had to laugh at it. It simply does not do to expose the workings of a joke. The classification concerns a symbolic
いや、わ
knowledge
からん
of
て、こ
humor,
んないっぱいあ
which
るんだ。
preserves all the characteristics of a joke except its laughableness. The real appreciation must come spontaneously, not introspectively. I think this is a not unfair analogy for our mystical feeling for nature, and I would venture even to apply it to our mystical experience of God. There are some to whom the sense of a divine presence irradiating the soul is one of the most obvious things of experience. In their view, a man without this sense is to be regarded as we regard a man without a sense of humor. The absence is a kind of mental
じ
deficiency.
ゃあ、ここ
We
に
may
わざ
try
わ
to
ざ粘る
analyze
理
the
由ないの。
experience as we analyze humor.
いや、
and
思ったよりボイスレコー
construct
ダ
a
ー多くてびっくりしちゃった。
It may be an atheistic
取るのめんど
philosophy.
くさくなってきちゃったな。
Let us not forget that the theology is symbolic knowledge, whereas the experience is intimate knowledge. And as laughter cannot be compelled by the scientific exposition of the structure of a joke, so a philosophic discussion of the attributes of God, or an impersonal substitute, is likely to miss the intimate response of the spirit, which is the central point of the religious experience. Arthur Eddington, 1927.
Mm-hmm, うんうんうん。これのね、橋の終点ギリギリのところに1個あるらしい。でもこれ聞いた気がするな。さすがに。
God bade me behold the sea, and I saw the ships
聞
sinking
い
and
たから
the
次のや
planks
つは
floating.
すぐ聞こ
Then
う。
the planks too were submerged.
プップビー
And God said to me,
プッププビー
Those who voyage are not saved. And he said to me, Those who, instead of voyaging, cast themselves into the sea, take a risk. And he said to me, Those who voyage and take no risk shall perish.
いいじゃん。
And
いい
he
じゃん。
said to me, In taking the risk,
あれ
there is a part of salvation. And the wave came and lifted those beneath it and overran the shore.
あ、もっと手前か。
And he said to me, The surface of the sea is a gleam that cannot be reached, and the bottom is a darkness impenetrable. And between the two are great fishes.
よいしょ。これが
When
新し
we
いよ。
choose silence, We choose to give up the reasons not to love, which are the reasons for going to war, or continuing war, or separating, or being a victim, or being right. In a moment of silence, in a moment of no thought, no mind, we choose to give those up. This is what my teacher invited me to. Just choose silence.
川にある
Don't
オベ
even
リスク
choose
ね。
love.
どこにあ
Choose
ったっけ？
silence, and love
Por
is
ejemplo.
apparent. If we choose love, we already have an idea of what love is. But if you choose silence, that is the end of ideas.
全部見つかってる。
You are willing to have no idea, to see what is present when there is no idea.
よかった。めんどくさそうだと思ってたねな。これで取りこぼしあったら。
No idea of love, no idea of truth, no idea of you, no idea
石切り場のオベリスクももうクリアしたでしょ？
is apparent. Gangaji, 2000.
リバーオベリスククリア。クワリーオベリスクもできた。砂漠のオベリスクと町のオベリスク。何です？ああ、遺跡のオベリスクね。それは確かにだ。遺跡をこっから手っ取り早く行くにはこっちかな。遺跡のオベリスクはこっちかな。ここら辺じゃない？あったあったあった。うんうんうん。位置的にはこれかな。違うの、こっちからじゃないのか。そっから見たい。そっから見る必要ある。ありきりか。じゃあね。で、ここら辺に2つ。
The glass is transparent, the wine transparent. The two are similar. The
や
affair
っぱりボイスレ
concludes.
コーダー聞いても進捗は伸びない
There
ね。
seems to be wine and no glass,
ついか。
or glass and no
めんど
wine.
くさいし。まあ、いいか。
Sahib-in-Abad, circa 990.
これわからんだろこんなの。 れは絶対わかんない。サイド差ないもん。で、あ、ほんとだ、こんなところにあら。あ、白くなった。見つけちゃった。マーチオベリスクかな、最後。砂漠オベリスク見つけました。クエリオベリスク、ツリーハウス、モネストリーオベリスク。マーチオベリスクだね。マーチオベリスクを解くためには地下に行く必要があります。ちょっと待って。よいしょ。これもあるらしいよ。
There is nothing in existence but veils hung down. Acts of perception attach themselves only to veils, which leave traces in the owner of the eye that perceives them.
風車の方へ行って
Inarabi 1231.
1231年の言葉が残ってるってすごいよね。よく考えたら。最近さ、なんかっていうか、子供の頃はさ、博物館の展示行ったりとかしても、全然、あ、そうなんだ、みたいな感じで冷めてましたけど、今、その、博物館見て思うのって、いや、よくこんな、保存しといたなって思いますね。人間さ、なかなか、あれじゃないですか？家、普通に一人暮らししてみるとさ、なかなか自分のものを保管するのだってうまくいかないっていうか、めんどくさくなって捨てちゃいたくなるわけで、そんな中で、
Isn't it? Understandable. Got people in it. This scientific knowledge is hard to take because it. Or you.
このくらい
This
かな。
stuff's easier to take, isn't it?
はい。
This scientific knowledge is hard to take because it removes the reassuring question
はい。
and leaves
取れた取れた。
is demonstrably true about the world. And the reason why so many people may be thinking about throwing.
このくらいのタイミング。上に登るためには、これだ。逆サイドに走っていって階段を登るしかない。引っかかった。これで上から見下ろせるはずなんだけど。
How easy is it for knowledge to spread? And that in the past,
これで
the people
過
who
ぎ
made
てたら
changes
笑えない
were
ね。
the people who had that knowledge, whether they were craftsmen or kings. Today, the people who make things change, the people who have that knowledge, are the scientists and the technologists who are the true driving force of humanity. And before you say, what about the Beethovens and the Michelangelos? Let me suggest something with which
これ
you
あん
may
まり
disagree
ね、
with
正面で聞きすぎるとね、
that at best,
著作権に引っか
the
かっちゃうんです
products
よ
of
ね。
human emotion, art, philosophy, politics, music, literature, are interpretations. Second-hand views of the world.
はいナイスで次は最後2時間ぐらいかけないといけないやつがあるらしくてそれがあれですねきついですねこのくらいかな取れてんだ取れてんね他に取り残してるところステージ1の方だねこれで3種類のパズルが効率よく取れました残すは2箇所っぽいなんですぽいところなんですがこれ聞いてなかったね
Your question is the most difficult in the world. It is not a question I can answer simply with yes or no. I am not an atheist. I do not know if I can define myself as a pantheist. The problem involved is too vast for our limited minds. May I not reply with a parable?
これの最初のエリア
The
の
human
藤の
mind,
花
no matter how highly trained, cannot
が
grasp
生えて
the
るところ
universe.
は
We are in the position of a little child entering
本当
a
だ
huge library filled with books in many languages. The child knows
Yeah,
someone
wow.
must have written these books. Does not know
120、134号
how. Does not understand the languages in which they are written. The child dimly suspects a mysterious order in the arrangement of the books, but doesn't know what that is. That, it seems to me, is the attitude of the most intelligent human toward God. Albert Einstein, 1930.
Mm-hmm. パズル数のカウント650個、とりあえず650個はいってる。655。うんうんうん。何個あるんだろう。知りたいな。523の135の6。オベリスクコンプリートで1個増えるんだ。523ね。あと3問。上か。はい。で、これで、ここ空いてるから答えになるやつね。写真撮ったんだよね、前ね。どこだっけな。ね。123ここを3回2列通って難しくない？こうかな。はいはいはいはい。これで521。ちょっと待って。100% クリアをしたい。地下のパズル日食のやつちゃんと見よう。40分で終わるかな。でも数的には123、135、風景パズル1個、オベリスクの数1個なんで、
How many of you here have personally witnessed a total eclipse of the sun? To stand one day in the shadow of the moon is one of my humble goals in
これ
life.
であとはひたすら待ち
The
ます
closest I ever came was over 30 years ago. On February 26th, 1979, a solar eclipse passed directly over the city of Portland. I bought my bus tickets and found a place to stay, but in the end, I couldn't get the time off work. Well, anyone who lives in Portland can tell you that the chances of catching the sun in February are pretty slim. And sure enough, the skies over the city that day were completely
こ
overcast.
れどのくらい待てば
I
いいんだろう
wouldn't have seen a thing. That work I couldn't get out of was my first job out of college. A sales clerk at an old Radio Shack store in beautiful downtown Worcester, Massachusetts. On my very first day behind the counter, a delivery truck pulled up to the front of the store. They carried in a big carton upon which was printed the legend TRS-80. It was our floor sample of the world's first mass-market microcomputer. The TRS-80 Model 1 had a Z80 processor clocked at 1.7 MHz, 4,096 bytes of memory, and a 64-character black and white text display. The only storage was a cassette recorder. All this could be yours for the low, low price of $599. The store I was working
なんか
in
散らばって
had
るパズル
seen
見落
better
としてんのかな
days. At one time, it had been near the center of a thriving commercial district. But like so many other New England cities, the advent of shopping malls had, by the early 70s, turned it into a ghost town. Worcester's solution to this problem was decisive, to say the least. The city's elders apparently decided that if they couldn't beat them, they would join them.
iPad の電源切れちゃ
And
った
so, several square blocks at the heart of the city were bulldozed into oblivion, destroying dozens of family businesses,
あでも
including the site of a
結構
pharmacy
思ったより
once
早く動く
operated
な
by my great-grandfather. In their place was erected a vast three-level shopping complex with cinemas and a food court. When the dust settled, only a few forlorn blocks of the old Worcester remained standing. My Radio Shack store was in one of those blocks. Then, to add insult to injury, Radio Shack opened a brand new location inside the shopping center, less than 500 feet from my store. So now patrons had a choice between a clean, well-lighted establishment with uniformed security and acres of convenient parking, or a shadowy
523
hole in a seedy old office building next to an adult movie theater.
523がさ
か
よいしょ
Fortunately, I had plenty of time to fool around with the new computer. I taught myself basic programming. Then I learned Z80 assembly. Both, of course, so that I could write games. I also created self-running animated demos, which ran all night in the store window for the edification of the winos who peed in our doorway. Strangely enough, the few customers we had didn't seem to be interested in our new computer, even after the 16K memory upgrade. In fact, most of the people who set off the buzzer on their way through the front door weren't there to buy anything at all. They were there to exploit a free promotion, which was the bane of Radio Shack employees for over 40 years. The Battery of the Month Club. The idea of this promotion was simple. Customers got a little red card upon which was printed a square for each month. 12 times a year, the lucky sales clerk got to punch out a square and give the customer one brand new AAA, AA, C, D, or 9-volt battery. Of course, customers weren't allowed to choose just any grade of battery. At the time of my employment, Radio Shack offered 3 different levels of battery excellence. First were the alkalines, powerful, long-lasting, and expensive, hanging behind the counter like prescription medication in gold-embossed blister packs. These were most certainly not available through the Battery of the Month Club. Next were the high-end lead batteries, sturdy, dependable batteries, moderately priced, and prominently displayed near the front of the store. These were also not available through the Battery of the Month Club. Finally, at the bottom of the barrel were the standard lead batteries. These were literally piled in barrels, cunningly located way at the back of the store, in a dark corner near the TV antennas. Remember TV antennas? Customers who came in looking for their free Battery of the Month had to walk the entire length of the premises, past the CB radios and stereo headphones and remote-controlled racing cars. Nothing would stop them.
他になんか
On
見
the
分け
first
て
day
るの
of
ない
every
かな
month, like clockwork, those customers came in waving their little red cards. I would look up from my programming and wave them to the back of the store. It didn't matter that the batteries were only worth 29 cents. It didn't matter that most of them were already half dead. They came, they grabbed. And as far as I can remember, not one of them ever paid for a damn thing. I was such a crappy salesman. I was young and foolish. I thought my education in game design was happening at the keyboard. I almost missed the lesson coming through the front door. Fortunately, I wasn't the only person fooling around with games on micros. All over the country, people like me were experimenting. Scott Adams was coding what would soon become the world's first commercial adventure game. Remember adventure games? My future employer, Infocom, was being founded, along with other legendary companies like Online Systems, Sirius, Personal Software, and SSI. Those were exciting times. Teenagers were making fortunes. Games were cheap and easy to build. The slate was clean. But in 1979, the biggest news in gaming had nothing to do with computers. On the morning of the autumn equinox, September 20th, a new children's picture book appeared in the stores of Great Britain. This picture book was rather peculiar. It consisted of 15 meticulously detailed color paintings, illustrating a slight, whimsical tale about a rabbit delivering a jewel to the moon. On the back jacket of the book was a color photograph of a real jewel, shaped like a running rabbit, 5 inches long, fashioned of 18-karat gold, suspended with ornaments and bells, together with a sun and moon of blue quartz. According to the blurb underneath, this very jewel had been buried somewhere in England. Clues pointing to its location were concealed in the text and in the pictures of the book. The treasure would belong to whoever found it first. The book was called Masquerade. It was created by an eccentric little man with divergent eyes and a talent for mischief named Kit Williams. Within days, the first printing was sold out, and the empire that never sleeps found itself in the grip of rabbit fever. Excited readers attacked the paintings with rulers, compasses, and protractors. Magazine articles and TV specials dissected the clues, floated theories, and followed with keen delight the reckless exploits of the fanatics. One obscure part, unfortunately known by the nickname Rabbit Hill, was so riddled with holes excavated by misguided treasure seekers that the authorities had to erect signs assuring the public that no gold rabbits were to be found there. Some hunters ended up seeking psychological counseling for their obsession. The craze leapt over the Atlantic Ocean and invaded America, France, Italy, and Germany. It sold over 1 million copies in a few months, a record unrivaled by any children's title until the advent of Harry Potter. Over 150,000 copies were sold in foreign translations, including 80,000 copies in Japanese, despite the fact that the puzzle was only solvable in English. It didn't matter that the Masquerade jewel was only worth a few $1,000s. Many seekers spent far more than that in their months of exploration and travel. It was the thrill of the chase, the possibility of being the one. Treasure hunts,
ソシャゲやろうかな。
secret messages, and hidden
暇すぎる
things
この間。
seem to exert an irresistible
何も
appeal.
やることないんだもんだって
They're fun
声
to
で
look
かくね
for and to talk
ソシャ
about.
ゲやろうかな
And this fact of human psychology has been exploited in computer games since the earliest days. It finds expression in the hidden surprises we call Easter eggs. Atari's Stephen Wright is credited with coining this term in the first issue of Electronic Games magazine. The first Easter egg in a commercial computer game appeared in an early Atari 2600 cartridge called, simply enough, Adventure. By a sequence of unlikely movements and obscure manipulations, players could discover a secret room where the words "created by Warren Robinette" appeared in flashing letters. Over the decades, Easter eggs and their evil twin, cheat codes, have become an industry within an industry. Entire magazines and websites are now devoted to their carefully orchestrated discovery and dissemination. They're part of our toolkit, our basic vocabulary, the language of computer game design. Computer gamers may have been the first to refer to hidden surprises as Easter eggs, but we certainly weren't the first to use them. Painters, composers, and artists of every discipline have been hiding stuff in their works for centuries. The recent advent of VCRs and Laserdisc players with freeze-frame capability exposed decades of secret Disney erotica. Thomas Kincaid, the self-appointed painter of light, amuses himself by hiding the letter N in his works. A number beside his signature indicates how many N's are hidden in each painting. Picasso, Dali, Raphael, Poussin, and dozens of other painters concealed all kinds of stuff in their paintings. A favorite trick was hiding portraits of themselves, their families, friends, and fellow artists in crowd scenes. El Greco loved dogs, but the Catholic Church forbid him from including any in his sacred
みんな好
paintings.
きだったんだエルゴレ
So he hid them, usually within the outlines of celestial clouds.
普通に勉強になるね
Composer Dmitry Shostakovich chafed under the political censorship imposed by the Soviet Ministry of Culture.
はいはい
His symphonies and chamber works are loaded with hidden signatures and subversive subtexts, which, had they been recognized, would have sent him to Siberia. Mozart's opera,
Siberia.
The Magic Flute, is filled with musical allusions to the rituals of the Freemasons, the ancient secret society of which he and his mentor Haydn were members.
入るの
But the most famous purveyor of Easter eggs is that champion of the late Baroque, the ultimate musical nerd,
ア
Johann
ルティメットミュー
Sebastian
ジカル
Bach.
ナードって言われて
Bach was a student of gematria, the art of assigning numeric values to letters of the alphabet. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, etc. By comparing, sequencing, or otherwise manipulating these numbers, secret messages can be concealed. Bach took particular delight in the geometrical numbers 14 and 41.
なんで
14 is the sum of the initials of his last name.
あ
B equals 2, A equals 1, C equals 3, and H equals 8. 41 is the sum of his expanded initials, J.S. Bach. These two numbers show up over and over again in Bach's compositions. One of the better known examples is his setting of the chorale Vor deinem Thron. The first line of the melody contains exactly 14 notes, and the entire melody, from start to finish, contains 41.
へえ
Another of Bach's favorite games was the puzzle canon.
パズルか
A
も
canon is a melody that sounds good when you play it on top of itself, a little bit out of sync. Frere Jacques and Row, Row, Row Your Boat are familiar examples of simple two-voice canons. But a canon can employ any number
ちょっと待って戻りました
voices. And you don't have to play each voice the same way either. You can change the octave, transpose the key, invert the pitch, play it backwards, or any combination. Finding melodies that make good multi-voice canons is a fussy and difficult art, of which Bach was an undisputed master. Now, in a puzzle canon, the composer specifies the basic melody and the number of voices, but not the relationship of the voices. The student has to figure out the position and key of each voice, and whether to perform them inverted and or backwards. Bach wrote quite a number of puzzle canons. The most famous, BWV 1076, is part of a fascinating story. One of Bach's students was a fellow by the name of Lorenz Misler, founder of the Society of Musical Science. This elite, invitation-only institution devoted itself to the study of Pythagorean philosophy and the union of music and mathematics. Its distinguished membership reads like a who's who of German composers, including Handel, Telemann, and eventually Mozart. Applicants for membership in the society were required to submit an oil portrait of themselves, along with a specimen of original music. With nerdly efficiency, Society member number 14 decided to combine these admission requirements into a single work. He sat for a portrait with Elias Hausmann, official artist at the court of Dresden. This portrait, which now hangs in the gallery of the town hall in Leipzig, is the only indisputably authentic image of Bach in existence. The Hausmann portrait shows Bach dressed in a formal coat with exactly 14 buttons. In his hand is a sheet of music paper, upon which is written a puzzle canon for 6 simultaneous voices. In 1974, a manuscript was discovered which proved that this canon was the 13th in a series of exactly 14 canons based on the ground theme of the famous Goldberg variations. As if these musical gymnastics weren't enough, Bach liked to hide messages in his compositions by assigning notes to the letters. His initials, B-A-C-H, correspond to the pitch sequence B flat, A, C, and B natural in German letter notation. This theme makes its most memorable appearance in the last bars of his final composition, The Art of Fugue, published soon after his death in 1750. The word fugue comes from the Latin fuga, which means flight, as in running away. So the art of fugue is the art of flight, the art of taking a theme and running with it. Bach wrote hundreds of fugues, but none as sublime as this sequence of 14. In the last and most complicated fugue in the series, the first and second sections develop normally. This is followed by the B-A-C-H signature, and then suddenly, without any warning or structural justification, the fugue stops, dead in its tracks. One of the composer's 20 children, his son Carl Philipp Emanuel, claimed that Bach died moments after those last few notes were written. This story is probably apocryphal. The Easter eggs in Bach's music are a pleasant obscurity, known chiefly to professors and students of Baroque music. But in March of 2002, when this lecture was first delivered, those Easter eggs were the talk of the entire classical music industry. Sitting near the top of the classical music charts that month was a compact disc on the ECM label called Mortimer. It was performed by the Hilliard Choral Ensemble, together with a talented but, until then, little-known violinist, Christoph Poppen. The music on Mortimer is based on a geometrical analysis of Bach's Partita in D minor for solo violin. This analysis, by German professor Helga Thon, assigns numeric values to the duration of notes, the number of bars, and the German letter notation of the partita. In doing so, she claims to have discovered the complete text of several liturgical ceremonies encoded in the notes. The CD presented these hidden texts superimposed over the original music. The result was strangely melancholy, dark, haunting, and very, very popular. Quite a few music critics attacked this disc. They didn't buy Professor Thone's analysis, dismissing it as a combination of numerology and canny marketing. Their caution was not without basis. Numerology is a slippery slope down which many a fine mind has slid to its doom. Allow me to offer an amusing anecdote from my own experience.
何どんな話
Back in the early 90s, before the internet took off, one of the more popular online bulletin board systems was a service called Prodigy.
Prodigy.
I bought an account on Prodigy so I could join a fraternal interest group and gossip with fellow members around the country. One day, a stranger appeared on our bulletin board. Right away, I knew we were in trouble. This fellow, whose name was Gary, began spouting all kinds of apocalyptic nonsense about worldwide conspiracies, secret societies, and devil worship. At first, we tried to be polite. We questioned his sources, corrected his histories, logically refuted his claims, and tried to behave in a civilized manner. But instead of soothing him, our attention only made him
調子乗っ
worse.
ちゃったか
His conspiratorial warnings became urgent, approaching hysteria. He began to threaten people who disagreed with him. To coin a phrase, Gary went all uppercase.
アッパーケー
But
ス
his most urgent warnings weren't about the gays, the Jews, the Rockefellers, or the Illuminati. According to Gary, the greatest enemy of mankind was Santa
い
Claus.
やそれはやばいな
Gary
面白そう
claimed
だ
to
な
possess a secret numerical formula that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Santa Claus was an avatar of the Antichrist. Intrigued, we pressed Gary to reveal his formula. In doing so, we walked right into his
いや
trap.
面白いよねそれ
We
は
should have known
確か
he
に
had a book to sell.
興味は出るわ
I fell for it. I sent him the $15. Less than a week later, the book arrived.
中国ドールなら
Above an
まあ
ominous photograph of the Washington Monument was emblazoned the title, 666, The Final Warning.
あらもう
Inside this privately printed 494-page monster, Gary reveals a simple geometrical formula, which he claims was developed by the ancient Sumerians. This formula assigns successive products of 6 to each letter of the alphabet.
はいはい
A
はい
equals 6, B
B
equals
equals
12,
C
C equals
equals
18,
18.
etc. Imagine my dismay when I applied this ancient formula to the name Santa Claus and obtained the blasphemous sum of 666, the biblical number of the beast. I went on Prodigy and reported to the stunned members of our interest group that Gary was right after all. There could be no doubt that according to the unimpeachable wisdom of ancient Samaria, Santa Claus was the Antichrist. I then went on to point out several other names which, when submitted to Gary's formula, also produced the sum 666. Names like St. James, New York, and New Mexico. Soon the bulletin board was filled with discoveries like computer, Boston tea, and most sinister of all, sing karaoke. Gary left us alone after that. I got my $15 worth. But Gary is hardly the first person to connect secret codes to the Bible. People have been looking for Easter eggs in the Bible for
い
hundreds
や
of
そうだね
years.
いや面
The
白いなこの
Hebrew
人の
mystical
話
tradition of Kabbalah can be described as a geometrical meditation on the
旧約聖書の
Pentateuch,
初めの5章
the
に
first 5 books of the Old Testament.
はいはい
The advent of computers has made the application of numerology to the Bible fast and
Numerology.
efficient. The latest spate of Bible searching was instigated by a book published in 1998 by Michael Drosnin, a former Wall Street Journal reporter. His book, The Bible Code, applied a skip cipher in which every nth character in a text is combined to form a message. By applying his skip cipher to the Hebrew text of the Old Testament, Drosnin claimed to have discovered predictions of World War II, the Holocaust, Hiroshima, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin and both Kennedys, the moon landing, Watergate, the Oklahoma City bombing, the election of Bill Clinton, the death of Princess Di, and the comet that collided with Jupiter. He also found predictions of a giant earthquake in LA, a meteor hitting the Earth, and nuclear Armageddon, all scheduled to occur before the end of the last decade. The Bible Code spent many weeks on the bestseller lists, spawning several sequels and dozens of imitators. The Bible has certainly attracted its share of crackpots, but for the real hardcore egg hunters, nothing can rival the ingenuity, the tenacious scholarship, the stubborn zeal of those who seek the answer to the ultimate literary puzzle. A poisonous conundrum that has squandered fortunes, destroyed careers, and driven healthy, intelligent scholars to the brink of madness and beyond. Who wrote Shakespeare? The essays and books devoted to the Shakespeare authorship problem are sufficient to fill a large library. Several such libraries actually exist. Not even a day-long tutorial, much less an hour lecture, can begin to do justice to this complex, bizarre, and dangerously tantalizing story. Nevertheless, for the unacquainted, I will attempt to summarize the issue in a few paragraphs. The undisputed facts of Shakespeare's life and career could be scribbled on the back of a cocktail napkin. We know for a fact that a man named William Shakespeare was born in 1564 in or around the village of Stratford-upon-Avon. We know that he had a wife and at least 3 children. We know he bought property in Stratford, was involved in several lawsuits with his neighbors, and died there in 1616, aged 52. We also know that during those same years, a man with a last name similar to Shakespeare worked as an actor on the London stage, eventually becoming co-owner of some of the theaters there. We also know that about the same time, a number of most excellent poems and plays were published in London under the name Shakespeare. We do not know for a fact that the landowner in Stratford and the actor in London with a similar last name were one and the same man. We do not know for a fact that either man had anything to do with the poems and the plays. All we know is that those poems and plays have, in the 400 years since their composition, come to be regarded as a pinnacle of Western culture. The works attributed to Shakespeare appear to have been written by a man or woman who knew something about just about everything. They're filled with references to mythology and classic literature, games and sports, war and weapons of war, ships and sailing, the law and legal terminology, court etiquette, statesmanship, horticulture, music, astronomy, medicine, falconry, and, of course, theater. Therein lies the problem. How could a farmer's son of uncertain schooling, from a mostly illiterate country village, a man of practically no account at all, wield such encyclopedic learning, with so much eloquence and wit, so much wisdom and human understanding? For the first 150 years, nobody questioned the traditional history of the bard. Then, in the late 18th century, Reverend James Wilmot, a distinguished scholar who lived just a few miles north of Stratford, decided to write a biography of the famous playwright. Dr. Wilmot believed that a man as well educated as Shakespeare must have owned a fairly extensive library, despite the fact that not a single book or manuscript is mentioned in his will. Over the years, he speculated, some of those books must have found their way into local collections. And so, the good Reverend Doctor scoured the British countryside, taking inventory of literally every bookshelf within 50 miles of Stratford. Not a single book from the library of William Shakespeare was discovered. Neither were there found any letters to, from, or about Shakespeare. Furthermore, no references to the folklore, local sayings, or distinctive dialect of the Stratford area could be found in any of Shakespeare's writings. After 4 years of painstaking research, Dr. Wilmot concluded, to his own dismay, that only one person contemporary with Shakespeare of Stratford had ever demonstrated the wide-ranging education and expressive talent needed to compose those poems and plays. That man was the multilingual author, philosopher, and statesman, inventor of the scientific method, chancellor to the courts of Queen Elizabeth and King James, Sir Francis Bacon. Dr. Wilmot never dared to publish his theory, but before he died, he confided it to a friend, James Cowell, who, in 1805, repeated it to a meeting of the Ipswich Philosophical Society. The members of the society were suitably outraged, and the scandalous matter was quickly forgotten. Then, in 1857, a lady from Stratford, Connecticut, published a book called The Philosophy of the Plays of Shakespeare Unfolded. In this book, Miss Delia Bacon, no relation to Francis, claimed that the works of Shakespeare were written by a secret cabal of British nobility, including Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Philip Sidney, as well as Sir Francis Bacon. Delia Bacon's book electrified the world of letters. Battle lines were drawn between the orthodox Stratfordians and the heretical Baconians. Literary societies and scholarly journals were formed to debate the evidence. Hundreds of pamphlets, newspaper articles, and essays were published defending each side and ridiculing the opposition with that self-aggrandizing viciousness peculiar to tenured academics. Armed with her explosive book, Delia Bacon journeyed to Stratford-upon-Avon and, unbelievably, obtained official permission to open Shakespeare's grave. However, when the moment came to actually lift the stone, Delia's self-doubt precipitated a catastrophic nervous breakdown. She later died penniless in a madhouse. Around 1888, things began to get a bit out of hand. U.S. Congressman Ignatius Donnelly of Minnesota became interested in the Shakespeare controversy. One day, browsing through his facsimile copy of the first folio of 1623, he noted that the word bacon appeared on page 53 of the histories and also on page 53 of the comedies. He also noted that Sir Francis Bacon had written extensively on the subject of cryptography. Donnelly began counting line and page numbers, adding and subtracting letters, drawing lines over sentences, circling words, and crossing them out. The result was a complex and virtually incomprehensible algorithm, which he claimed was invented by Bacon to hide secret messages inside the first folio. The greatest Easter egg hunt in the history of Western civilization had begun. Here are just a couple of the sillier highlights. A doctor named Orville Owen of Detroit constructed a bizarre research tool he called the Wheel of Fortune. This wheel consisted of 2 giant wooden spools wrapped with a strip of canvas 2 feet wide and 1,000 feet long. Onto this canvas, he glued the separate pages of the complete works of Bacon, Shakespeare, Marlowe, Greene, Peele, and Spenser, together with Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. By cranking the spools back and forth, Dr. Owen could quickly zip across the pages in search of clues and cross-references. Employing a large team of secretaries and stenographers, Owen claimed to have uncovered a complete alternative history of Elizabethan England, as well as several entirely new Shakespeare plays and sonnets. Listen to this hidden verse, supposedly penned by the mighty bard himself, which inspired Dr. Owen to build his Wheel of Fortune. Take your knife and cut all our books asunder, and set the leaves on a great firm wheel, which rolls and rolls, and turning the fickle rolling wheel, throw your eyes upon fortune, that goddess blind, that stands upon a spherical stone, that turning and inconstant rolls in restless variation. After publishing 5 thick volumes of this rubbish, Owen announced the discovery of an anagram, indicating that Bacon's original manuscripts were buried near Chepstow Castle on the River Wye. Owen spent the next 15 years and thousands of dollars excavating the bed of the river with boat crews and high explosives. He died before anything was found. A fellow named Arnsberg wrote an entire book based on the analysis of the significance of a suspicious crack in the tomb of Bacon's mother. A Ray of Sanity finally appeared in 1957. To those familiar with the science of cryptology, the name William Friedman needs little introduction. During World War II, Colonel Friedman was the head of the U.S. Army's Cryptoanalytic Bureau. He is credited with cracking the Japanese Empire's most sensitive cipher. After the war, the colonel decided to apply his expertise to the study of the Shakespeare ciphers. He interviewed several of the experts in the field and prepared a detailed scientific analysis, which he published under the title The Shakespeare Ciphers Examined. His conclusion? In a word, bunk. According to the standards of cryptologic science, not one of the hidden messages purportedly discovered in Shakespeare's works was plausible. The rules used to extract these messages from the texts were non-rigorous, wildly subjective, and unrepeatable by anyone except the original decipherer. The people involved were not being dishonest. They were channeling their preconceptions. They were trapped in a labyrinth of delusion, mining order from chaos. Anglers in a lake of darkness. Lear, Act 3, Scene 6. You would think that Friedman's cold and ruthless exposure would be enough to silence the heretics once and for all. Not a chance. The books and TV specials and websites and conferences and doctoral dissertations keep right on coming. I should point out that the Shakespeare authorship issue is not only the preoccupation of cranks and weirdos. A substantial number of respected authors and Shakespeareans have expressed serious doubts about the traditional origin of the plays. The list includes Nathaniel Hawthorne, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Walt Whitman, Henry James, Sam Clemens, Sigmund Freud, Orson Welles, and Sir John Gielgud. Living skeptics include the artistic director of the New Globe Theatre, Mark Rylance, Michael York, Derek Jacobi, Kenneth Branagh, and even that most revered and scholarly of contemporary Shakespearean actors, Keanu Reeves. The current leading candidate for the authorship is Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, a theory first proposed in 1920 by an English schoolmaster with the unfortunate name J. Thomas Looney. What is it about Bach, the Bible, and the works of Shakespeare that inspires this intense scrutiny? Nobody's looking for acrostics in Chaucer or Keats. There are no hit CDs of the secret chorales of Wagner or Beethoven. For the answer, we need to recognize the unique roles which the Bible and Shakespeare have played in the development of Western culture. No other single work of literature has influenced modern English more than the translation of the Holy Bible published in 1611 under the auspices of King James I. The King James Bible exemplifies the meaning of the word classic. It has been called the noblest monument of English prose, the very greatest achievement of the English language. It has served as an inspiration for generations of poets, dramatists, musicians, politicians, and orators. Countless people have learned to read by repeating the phrases in this, the only book their family possessed. Our constitutions and our laws have been profoundly shaped by its cadences
そ
and
の話者
imagery.
全員が読むような本があ
But
れ
even the
ば
glory of the King James Bible, compiled by a committee of 46 editors
絶
over
対
the
現
course
代
of a
の
decade,
言葉遣いに影響を与
pales
えますよ
before the
ね
dazzling legacy of the Swan of Avon.
強すぎ
The lowest estimate of Shakespeare's working vocabulary is 15,000 words, more than 3 times that of the King James Bible, and twice the size of his nearest competitor, John Milton. His poems and plays were written without the aid of a dictionary or a thesaurus. They didn't exist yet. It was all in his head. When Shakespeare had a thought for which Elizabethan English had no word, he invented one. The Oxford English Dictionary lists hundreds of everyday words and phrases which made their first appearance in the pages of the Bard. Addiction, alligator, assassination, bedroom, critic,
ベ
dawn,
ッドルームド
design,
デザイン
dialogue,
ダイアロ
employer,
グエンプロイヤー
film,
フィル
glow,
ムブロー
gloomy,
ブルーニー
gossip,
ゴシッ
hint, hurry,
プハリ
investment, lonely, luggage, manager, switch, torture,
Torture.
transcendence, wormhole, zany. Hamlet alone contains nearly 40 of these neologisms. Who today would have this audacity, this giddy exuberance of invention? Only one other English author even approaches Shakespeare's facility for coining new words,
そうな
Sir
っちゃうよ
Francis
ね
Bacon. In the modern era, the record holder is Charles Dodgson, better known as Lewis Carroll, who, interestingly, also happens to be the second most quoted author in English, after Shakespeare. Everyone has been profoundly molded by the influences of the King James Bible and Shakespeare. Like it or not, all of us peer at the world through the lenses of these great works. They are the primary source documents of modern English thought, the style guides of our minds. Contemplating these dazzling jewels of wisdom and eloquence gives rise to an extraordinary feeling,
どんな
a
感情
potent, rare, and precious emotion
プレ
with
サ
the
ス
potential to
エモーション
completely upset your
さ
life.
よならは
An
エモ
emotion
ーション
powerful enough to make a man abandon his wife and children, forfeit career and reputation, lay down his possessions, and follow his heart without
そのま
questioning.
まそのまま
That sweet,
そのまま
sweet
両
fusion
手を
of wonder
ゆ
and
かり
fear,
をついて僕は
irresistible attraction, and soul-numbing dread known as awe. Awe is the
Awe.
grail of artistic achievement. No other human emotion possesses such raw, transformative power, and none is more difficult to evoke.
うん確かに
Few and far between are the works of man that qualify as truly awesome.
うん
It is awe that convinces a rabbi to spend a lifetime decoding Yahweh from the Pentateuch. Awe that sends millions of visitors each year to the pyramids of Giza, Guadalupe, and Mecca. It was awe that drove poor Delia Bacon to her doom. Now, please don't come away from this lecture thinking that the key to awesome game design is the installation of Easter eggs.
まだ聞くよ
Ordinary games with their contrived Easter eggs and cheat codes are like the Battery of the Month Club. You have to trudge down to the back of the store to get what you really came for. If superpower is what people really want, why not just give it to them? Is our imagination so impoverished that we have to resort to marketing gimmicks to keep players interested in our games? Awesome things don't hold anything back. Awesome things are rich and generous. The treasure is right there. One afternoon, I was sitting alone behind the counter at that old Radio Shack store. My boss had stepped out for some reason. An elderly woman walked through the front door. Like most of our customers, she was shabbily dressed, probably on a fixed income. I assumed she was there for her free battery. But instead, she placed a portable radio on the counter. This little radio came from the days when they boasted about the number of transistors inside on the case. It was completely wrapped in dirty white medical tape. The woman looked at me and asked, "Can you fix this?" Slowly, I unwrapped the medical tape, peeling away the layers until the back cover of the radio fell off, accompanied by a cloud of red dust.
なんで
The
なんで赤い
interior
の
of the radio was half eaten away by battery leakage and corrosion. I looked at the radio. I looked at the old woman. I looked back at the radio. I reached behind me, where the expensive alkaline batteries were hanging like prescription medication, and removed a gleaming 9-volt cell from its gold blister pack. Then I pulled a brand new transistor radio from a box, installed the alkaline, and helped the lady find her favorite
直
station.
せないよね、腐食しちゃったら。
No money changed hands. She left the store without saying a word.
え
Awesome things are kind of like that.
ああ、もう買わなかったんだ。
Bach offered his students very specific insight into the source of awe. In addition to BACH, 2 other sets of initials are also associated with Bach's music.
どんな略
These initials are not hidden in the
の
notes.
誰もが見られる場所におしゃ
Instead,
れ書きしたの。
they're scrawled right across the top of the manuscript for the whole world to see. The initials are SDG and
JJ5.
JJ. SDG stands for the Latin phrase Sole Deo Gloria, to the glory of God alone. JJ stands for Jesu Juva. Help me, Jesus. Bach wrote all of his great masterpieces sub specie aeternitatis, under the aspect of eternity.
神に対
He
して
did
の
not compose only to please his sponsors or to win the approval of an audience.
そうなんだ
His work was his worship. Bach once wrote, "Music should have no other end and aim than the glory of God and the recreation of the soul. Where this is not kept in mind, there is no true music, but only an infernal clamor and ranting. The name of the power that moves you is not important. What is important is that you are moved. Awe is the foundation of religion. No other motivation can free you from the limits of personal achievement. Nothing else can teach you the art of flight. Computer games are barely 40 years old.
そう
Only a few words in our basic vocabulary have been established. A whole dictionary is waiting to be coined.
そうね
The slate is clean. Someday soon, perhaps even in our lifetime, a game design will appear that will flash across our culture like lightning.
Like lightning.
It will be easy to recognize. It will be generous, giddy with exuberant inventiveness. Scholars will pick it apart for decades, perhaps centuries. It will be something wonderful, something terrifying, something awful. A few years ago, I was invited to speak at a conference in London. My wife joined me, and we took a day off for some sightseeing. We decided to visit England's second biggest tourist attraction, Stratford-upon-Avon.
Stratford-upon-Avon.
It was cold and rainy when our train arrived. Luckily, most of the attractions are just a short walk from the station. We visited Shakespeare's birthplace, a charming old house along the main street, which attracts millions of pilgrims every year, despite the complete lack of any evidence that Shakespeare was born there or even lived anywhere near it. We went past the school where Shakespeare learned to read and write, although no documents exist to prove his attendance. We visited Anne Hathaway's cottage, the rustic country farm where his wife spent her childhood, although no record shows anyone by that name ever having lived there. Finally, we came to the one location undeniably associated with Shakespeare, Trinity Parish Church, on the banks of the River Avon, where a man by that name is buried. This beautiful church is approached by a long walkway between rows of ancient gravestones, shaded by tall trees. The entrance door is surprisingly tiny. No cameras are allowed inside. The interior is dark and quiet. Despite the presence of busloads of tourists, the atmosphere is hushed and respectful. A few people are seated in the pews, deep in prayer. An aisle leads up the center of the church. The left side of the altar is brightly illuminated. On the wall above is a famous bust of the bard, quill in hand, gazing serenely at the crowd of pilgrims. On the floor beneath, surrounded by bouquets of flowers, at the very spot where Delia Bacon lost her mind, the gravestone of William Shakespeare bears this dire warning. Good friend, for Jesus' sake, forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man who spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones. Every year, 3 million pilgrims arrive from every nation on earth to approach this stone and consider the likeness of a man whose body of work can only be described as awesome. By contrast, the right side of the altar is dark and featureless. Nobody of any consequence is buried there. The only point of interest is a wooden case of simple design carved of dark oak. Inside the case, sealed beneath a thick sheet of glass, lies a large, open book. A plaque on the case identifies this book as a first edition of the King James Bible, published in 1611, when Shakespeare was 46. Not many pilgrims visit this side of the altar. Most of those that do simply glance at the book, read the plaque, and move along. A few, more observant, note that the Bible happens to be opened to a page in the Old Testament, the book of Psalms, chapter 46. No explanation is given for this particular choice of pages. For the initiated, none is necessary. If you are of inquisitive bent, if you are intrigued by English history and literature, if you value your peace of mind, cover your ears now. In the year 1900, a scholar noticed something about the King James translation of Psalm 46. Something terrifying. Something wonderful. The 46th word from the beginning of Psalm 46 is shake. The 46th word from the end is spear.
わえ
There are only two possibilities here. Either this is the finest coincidence ever recorded in the history of world literature, or it is not. The Earth revolves around only one
地球を
sun
肯定するのは太陽の
and
周りだ
has
けで
only one
月も
moon.
一つしかない。
The moon happens to be 400 times smaller than the sun. The sun happens to be 400 times farther away. And the apparent paths of the moon and sun in our sky happen to intersect exactly twice every month. Which means that every now and then, at long yet precisely predictable intervals, the lunar disk slips across the face of the sun and just barely conceals it for a few wonderful, terrible minutes.
minutes.
A fine coincidence, no?
No?
In June of 1977, a little man with divergent eyes and a talent for mischief ascended a hilltop in the British village of Ampthill. At the summit of this hill is a tall, slender cross, a memorial to Catherine of Aragon, the first wife of Henry VIII. The sun, high in the south, cast the shadow of the cross upon the grassy hillside. At exactly 12 noon, the man removed from his pocket a bar magnet. He turned the magnet so its north pole was facing south and buried it under the shadow of the cross. 2 years later, a few hours before the publication of his first book, the man returned to that hillside, this time in the dead of night. He used a compass to locate the magnet he had buried. In that same place, he dug a hole in the ground and placed inside a ceramic container inscribed with the following words: I am the keeper of the jewel of masquerade, which lies waiting safe inside me for you or eternity.
やったー。いや、これ確かに待つわ。40分ぐらい待ったかな。521クリア、135の6。これは風景パズルは全部見つけました。残りあれだね。風景パズル全部見つかっちゃったよ。最後あれかな、上かな。あ、その前にちょっとだけ確認させてもらおうか。523。 三角パズルを全部見ていこうかな。三角パズル全部ちゃんとクリアできてるのかどうかっていうのをチェックしていきたいと思います。いやー、俺らせっかくだから523にしたいよね。はい。でも絶対やったな。これ上の最後抜けちゃっていいかな。やったー、白くなってる。このゲーム初めてやったの2017年ぐらいだから8901 4年かけてやっと 100% クリアができましたって感じですね。いや、このゲームほんと難しいよ。白いオベリスク。上登って下行きたいかな。上登ってから下に行きたい。これはあれどうすんだっけ。あれこれどうすんだっけ。どうすればいい。向こう側に行きたいんだけど向こう側に行く術がない。あ、こっから行く必要がないのかも。遠回りしたー。踏 元のショートカットが空いてるからそっから行けばいいんだ。わあ、パニックパニック。無駄が多いよ今の動き。落ち着いてこう。このまま下にガーッと降りちゃってさ。あ、でもあれか、行かれないじゃん。一方通行なんじゃなかったっけあれって。力いけないよね確かね。あ、いけるわ。まあいっか、これでクリアしちゃえばいいんだもんね。
A star at dawn.
At dawn. 夜明けの星。これで522になりました。
A bubble
A bubble in a stream.
in a stream.
重ねてこないで声を。 ASMR やめて。 ASMR だこれが。キュン。あそこ通んの？オレンジの家だ。あそこ抜けるんだ。キュン。
A flash of lightning in a summer cloud.
Flash of lightning in a summer cloud.
Summer crowd. そこ抜けるの、真ん中抜けるの好きだね、君ね。ヒューン、ヒュールリー。ここまで来て、その風景パズルそんなやってなかった人は、あ、ここ風景パズルじゃんみたいな風に思うんだろうね。あ、しまっちゃった。で、オベリスクあるなみたいな。めんどくさいなと思って。
A flickering lamp.
A flickering lamp.
Flickering lamp. また一個ずつ灯してきた火が消えます。真ん中抜けるね。ユーン。閉まる。また帰っていくんだ、あそこに。あ、こんなエンディングだったっけ？
A phantom.
A phantom.
Phantom.
A phantom.
遠ざかっていく。閉じる。あ、やり直しになる感じなんだね。あれ、こんなエンディングだったっけ？
And a dream.
And a dream.
And a dream. おやすみ。あ、終わっちゃった。もう一回立ち上げます。そういうゲームだったんだ。シャラ臭いからあれなのよね。 自動で終わるのは確かにそういうゲームだった気がする。確かに。こっから出るのはあんま賢くないんだな、多分。こっちから出よう。ああ、これはあんま賢くねえや。おいおいおい。意味なかったわ。アホやってんな。これで初期の場所まで戻ってパズルを解きます。ごめん、一個最後にちょっとだけ確認したいな。これってどこ行くの？あ、近いじゃん、全然。お、アホやってん。自分はアホやってん。めちゃくちゃ遠回りな道を見事に選択してきった。でももうこれでようやく終わりになれる。初めて知ったんですけど、ここに川沿いに亀がいるらしい。亀いなくね？亀いないです。デマです。はい、終わり。ちょっと待って。ああ、ここか。竹林の方らしい。これか。あ、ほんとだ。亀だこれ。かわいい。亀いたんだ君。はい、終わり。走る走る。あ、でもこれでね、亀ね、最後見なかったらね、後悔してたと思う。完全攻略。この全パズル、この世に存在する全てのパズルが解けていたとはいえ、心のどこかでしこりのようなものが残り続けて、眠れない毎日を過ごしていたと思うので、亀が見れてよかったなはい。ということで、もうちょいで完全クリアなんです。うわーん。もらう。どうしようかにゃー。どうもしないよね、もうね、ここまで来たらね。ここ行き過ぎた、戻り過ぎた。心を無にして戻り過ぎちゃったの。 に入っていける。そしてこの状態からあいガチャ。
Ever in my life have I sought thee with my songs. It was they who led me from door to door, and with them I have felt about me, searching and touching my world. It was my songs that taught me all the lessons I ever learned. They showed me secret paths. They brought before my sight many a star on the horizon of my heart. They guided me all the day long to the mysteries of the country of pleasure and pain. And at last, to what palace gate have they brought me in the evening at the end of my journey?
Audio by Wabi Sabi Sound.
Wabi-sabi
Andrew
sound.
Lackey, Bo Anthony Jimenez, Jeff Garnett, Luca Fusi,
これはもうそのまま生かされてますよね。うまいよね。このカクカクのワインイメージいいな。このプレイヤーから流れてるのがワビサビサウンドなのか。ちょっと落ち着きがなくなっちゃったな。あ、見て。
The core development team of The Witness was comprised more or less as follows. Design and generally steering the ship, Jonathan Blow. Programming, Ignacio Castaño, Salvador Belmurciano, Andrew Smith. Modeling and texturing, Luis Antonio, Orshi Spaniol, Eric A. Anderson.
こんな高いっけ？そんな高くないよね。移動させられ、飛ばされてんだ。こういうさ、VR チャットでこういうの作ればいいんだ。こういうところ行きたいな。こういうところに暮らしたいな。暮らしたいっていうか、なんだろう。1週間泊まりがけみたいな。ポイン。
Additional contributions in modeling by Shannon Galvin, Alex Hayworth, Andrea Vlasic, Eric Urquhart, and David Hellman. Additional contributions in programming by Casey Miratori, Andrew Heenick, Nicholas Ray.
あ、ここね。あれ？ここがあれか。あ、
Special thanks to Jeff Roberts, Daniel Massio.
いいな、こういう感じのところ行きたいな。うまいよね、視点の飛ばし方が。ちゃんと人が入れるっていうね。 ってる。これヒビウス砂嵐になってんのなんかあんのかな。ああ、各エリアだ。スクリーンエリア。うんうんうん。クロークだ。じゃあ
Special thanks to our friends at Sony. Nick Sutner, Adam Boyes, Justin Massengill, Alessandro Bevenzi.
クロークってかあれか、空港って感じかな。ああ、またさらに高くなった。ああ、お寺の中ね。明かりが。で、最後ここら辺に確かね、最後の一個のパズルがあるんですよね。あった。すごくないこれ。ああ、すごい。いいなあ。あれこれじゃないんだ。でももういいです。で、ここからムービーですね。またムービーを見る時間ですね。腕の毛がやっぱね、見覚めたっていうことなんでしょうね、このゲームの世界から。ああ、カテーテルも取ってたんだ。 リスマスの時期に撮ったんでしょうね。あっ、このザ・ウィットネスというパズル、最後にっていうか、あと一つだけパズルがあったみたいなんですが、もう探せません。限界です。鍵山、引退します。ということで、名残惜しくもありますが、このね、ムービーをじっくりと目に焼き付けて終わりにしたいかなと思います。パズルを作る人の何をやってんのこんなことやってたっけ。なんか最後外に出てた記憶しかないな。いいなあ、広くて。丸だとさ、風景パズルを思い起こさせるよね。もう散々やりましたからね。奥には行ったんだけど、それいいのか。丸いね。風景パズルだね。強くね。叩く力強くねえか。クッキーはそのままだし。こんなムービーだったんだね。忘れてたわ。でもこのゲーム開発会社のオフィスなんでしょうけど、すごい生まれるべくして生まれたなって感じしますね。こういうその内装とか見てるとね、ここら辺とか絶対さ、全然ウィットネスに出てきてもおかしくない感じですよ、これは。風景パズルある。風景パズルショック2回目だからまだね耐えれてますけど、これ1回目でね、ここ見たらね、もう発狂しますね。発狂しました、影山は。うわー、もうやめてくれーってなった。丸いものを見せるのをやめてくれーってなった。 辺とかすごいウィットネスだよね。この直性っていうか。で寝っ転がって終わりだったかな。終わりです。ということで、4時間やることになっちゃいましたが、これで晴れて、解放されたということで、またね、別のゲームをね、火曜日にやっていきたいかなと思います。夜も更けてきたんで、あんまり大きな声が出せないですが、見ていただいた皆さん、ありがとうございました。それでは、木曜日の、キングスフィールドでお会いしましょう。それでは皆さん、